A very warm welcome to everybody here in the room, and a very well welcome also in the ether to all the people watching this panel online. We are happy and very pleased that you are here today, and it's a very special day today, because today it's the 86th anniversary of the cruel Reichspogromnacht, as you know, and fortunately it's also today the anniversary, the 35th anniversary of the falling wall of Berlin. So we are very, very happy. I'm very happy to be with you, and I'm very happy that all the panelists are here today. And just give you a tiny impression of my morning today. I went to the Brandenburger Tor because it was such a special atmosphere there, and I was very pleased and happy to be there. And I was wondering, 1988 I weren't able to go there. I was on the east side today, so it's a very great day today. And it's a very great honor for me also that we will discuss our topic today, restoring trust and building democratic resilience. In these times, it's very important and very necessary. And I also want to encourage you, the audience, to ask questions, and I will give you a sign when it's coming up to that time that you can ask your questions too. And before we start, a warm welcome to Goscha Binczyk. She is a trained lawyer and serving currently in the European Commission as deputy head of the representation of the European Union here in Berlin. Great to have you with us today. And then Professor Christoph Gattringer. He is the president of the Austrian Science Fund, the FWF, sorry. Sometimes the alphabet is a bit complicated, obviously. And he's also professor in theoretical physics of the University of Graz. Welcome to you too. Then we have Dr. Manon Westphal. She is a political scientist. She is specialized in theoretical politics, and she's from the University of Münster. It's in Nordrhein-Westfalen, of the west side of Germany. And she's also, therefore I have to look on my cards, co-leader of the research project Cantos of Non-Oligarchic Democratic Future. Welcome to you too. And last but not least, of course, is Günther Nooke. He is also a physicist, and he was former East German civil rights activist and German politician. And he was also, by Chancellor Merkel, the personal envoy of Africa and advisor of the Federal Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation. Great to have you with us today. And I just have one question to you, because you were born in the former DDR, GDR. So what do you think today? What is your impression? What were your feelings today when you woke up?
I was yesterday at the Brandenburg Gate and saw the paintings, and the atmosphere was not so vibrant, but for us it's the most important time this year, between September 1989 and the reunification in October 1990. So it's, for me, it's maybe the most thing I was influenced by, maybe. And if I like to say something regarding these experiences, because of maybe I'm the only one here with these experiences from dictatorship and totalitarian system in East Germany. That's and allow me. This is a scientific, or it's called Science Summit here, the Falling Walls Conference, and strengthening democracy or trust in democratic institution. That means for me, sometimes my experiences as a politician in the time being, or 10, 20 years ago, that is a misleading term sometimes. And so I would say we have to recognize maybe that democracy is not easy to define. And to understand what I mean, obviously, we mean with democracy much more than free and secret elections. If that, also free elections only were the case, everyone should have been pleased with the high turnout and the diverse electorate for Donald Trump this week. Instead, the Liberal Board was completely horrified about that, and which is completely understandable when you look at the person of Trump. So that's very clear. But, and that is the maybe more scientific background, and the professors can help me. I would like a very interesting question in light of my own experience, what I mentioned. Also as a human rights commissioner, where I traveled worldwide, not only through Africa. I was also the federal commissioner in the Foreign Office before, and my own analysis. And I will give a question, a very tough question and a provocative answer. The question is for me, and that means the individuals and the institution, but in what I mentioned as first answer to you, what is the opposite to totalitarian? And the answer could be not liberal, but democratic. Our federal president once claimed, I think many people think this, that the democracy is a liberal democracy or it is not democracy at all. And I think that is worth discussing.
So that's a very interesting point.
That's a very crucial point. It depends from freedom and responsibility as the main issue of politics, and it means institution, but it means everyone, every individual. What does it mean for me? And the voters of Trump are also responsible, and also the Democrats, speaking not about the issues of the people, but about liberal issues not interested, or many people were not interested in. So that's a crucial point we have to discuss. From my point of view and my experience, you asked for.
A very good point of view and very interesting. Just let me, just to save a bit time during the discussion, I just would like to introduce each of you with a short quote you did when we spoke together for the preparing of this panel. And I would like to start with you, Goscha, because you said democracy is, you just have to go in with it and work with it with your brain and with your heart. It's like a partnership, and it's not easy always, but you have to be prepared to compromise. And that's the same with democracy. And also a bit like the European Union, it's not always perfect, but it's quite good. So that's very interesting. Can you explain us a bit more what you mean with that?
Yes, and also answering to you, actually you're not the only one who discovered the benefits or the lack of them in another system. I traveled as a child the Iron Wall from Poland to West Germany, so my work for democracy is something I do with passion, because I don't want my children to experience this, and what we are doing right here is exactly the work that needs to be done, and that's what I wanted to emphasize in our talk, and what I to bring into this discussion. Democracy is not something given. It's not something that we have as a human beings that we come to the world with, but it's something that we have to work on, to develop, and to work on a daily basis. And when we look into our treaties, into the democracies that we've done, we cannot stay the way they were. I mean, our German democracy is 70 years old in its Grundgesetz, in its basic law, and the times have changed. So right now, we need to modernize our way of working together, seeing what are the ways of finding compromises, of talking with each other and developing human solutions, common solutions that work for all of us, maybe not best, but which work good for all of us, every day in another. And we are just at a crucial point, I think, in this discussion, both in Germany for a certain reason, as well as in the world with the American elections, to walk the talk and to do these discussions and to see, hey, how do you want to work together in the future, and how do we want to find solutions and compromises that work in the European Union from Helsinki to Lisbon, and maybe also here in Berlin.
Yeah, that's very interesting, I think, and it brings me to you, Manon, because you said it's necessary in order to strengthen trust in democracy and politics. We maybe need innovative approaches. For example, we could set up a committee with randomly selected citizens, persons, and then we can they can have important issues and topics, and they will give those topics to the politicians. And of course, this is very interesting, I think, for me, because it would require incentives for them. So how to be guaranteed that the child care will be done, or maybe they could require money for their work. So I think that's a very interesting, very downbroken topic you mentioned there. Can you explain a bit more?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think when we discuss the question of how we can build democratic resilience, then democratic innovations are an especially interesting field of phenomena to look at. And in general, democratic innovations are all kinds of new institutions, new institutional tools implemented in order to improve the democratic quality of politics. And I would like to zoom in on one type of democratic innovation here, and that is citizens' assemblies. So citizens' assemblies use lottery, use random selection in order to bring together ordinary citizens to deliberate on a matter of common concern and then formulate a recommendation on how this particular topic that's discussed could or should be dealt with by policymakers. And I think there are certain qualities about citizens' assemblies that deserve highlighting. And one thing is probably the most obvious thing. So citizens' assemblies do something that's still rare in representative democracy. So they give ordinary citizens an active role in politics. And also another aspect is the value of political equality. So by using a lottery as a mechanism to compose the group that comes together there, you basically express the idea, okay, everyone is competent to participate and competent to contribute to political deliberations. And the other quality I'd like to highlight is diversity. So if you use random selection to compose that group of citizens, then you bring together people with very different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, and get a diverse group of citizens who would otherwise probably not talk to each other. So these are, I think, important qualities of citizens' assemblies as one type of democratic innovation. And these features, I think, render them especially interesting in a situation in which we can observe certain limitations, deficiencies of representative political systems as they currently exist. And I just want to highlight 2 points here. So one is the much researched phenomenon of unequal responsiveness, so the fact that decisions in representative democracies very clearly reflect the interests and preferences of the better off parts of society to a much greater extent than the preferences, interests of the less well-off parts of society. And here citizens' assemblies could be a kind of counterweight, maybe. And the other aspect is that I think we can see that representative political systems do not show full capacity, are not fully capable of dealing with some of the fundamental challenges that we are facing today. And the example of the climate crisis and the ecological crisis, that's probably an obvious example. And in fact, if we look at citizens' assemblies that deal in particular with the topic of the climate crisis and the question of what could be useful measures in the situations, we see that they very often formulate quite ambitious policies, quite ambitious political proposals that also go beyond what is discussed in the established institutions of the decision-making process.
Does those topics and issues relate maybe to what you say, Christoph? Because you say there's a strong connection between skepticism in science and skepticism in democracy. So what Manon said, she said, okay, maybe we have to encourage more people with clear and very concrete possibilities. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there is a connection, clearly. So when I started to prepare for this meeting, I thought I maybe look a little bit at the numbers in the US, since we just had the elections there, and I dug out a very recent study of the Pew Institute, and I was interested in the question, how does the decline of the trust in institutions affect science? And there are some interesting numbers. In 2019, 73% of Americans believe that there's a positive impact of science on society. 2023, we are down to 57%, so from 73% to 57%. But if you divide the cohort in Democrats and Republicans, 2019, 77% of Democrats believed positive impact of science, 70% of Democrats. 2023, still 70% of Democrats, but Republicans less than 50%. And I find this very interesting, that these two groups both lose trust in science, in the institution, but at a different rate. And this division of society into these partisan groups, I find a serious challenge. And I very much like the idea we discussed a little bit, these citizens' assemblies to maybe overcome this divide. Sit together, discuss the facts, and try to come up with solutions. So there is a clear connection.
And Goethe, you also said democracy is just like a kind of gift, but on the other hand, it's also work, and everybody is responsible to work on this democracy. So, you think it's people just are self-responsible?
Yeah, of course. I would like to react a little bit about this kind of. I think what Manon said was it's a parallel structure maybe, or it's the parliament who can decide. So that's the problem of these groups. We know this from the western part here, 1980s. Planning cells and others, so for concrete issues. But I like to mention a man, Niklas Luhmann, who is not very in favor in Germany, but unknown in the Anglo-Saxony world maybe. But we have different functional systems in our societies, and the functional system for is politics, science, maybe also the media or religion or whatever, and politics is about it's a power game, and power is the interesting point. And what is the power of those groups? What is the power of science? You need someone who is channel your opinion through the powerful politicians or the members of the parliament or the government. So and we do not understand this. Really, because everyone is not responsible for everyone, for everything, but everyone is responsible to be able to play in their own role in the science system, in the political system, and power means we have to support everything who is strengthening the control, the limitation of power, the transparency, and so on. And if there is too much powerless structures for state-funded institutions, for non-governmental organizations paid by taxpayers' money, it becomes more and more complex, and we have a problem with understanding. And the elections, you can also say it's not about it's the economy stupid, said Clinton. You can also say it's the issue who are people interested in stupid. So if for instance, Kamala Harris was speaking about only liberal issues of the liberal elite, then the ordinary people will not feel represented.
Yeah, but that's exactly the question.
Yeah,
how
but
can we
the problem
encourage
is,
people?
will they feel represented if they have before the opportunity to be part of such groups, maybe arbitrary or those groups? I would say we have to deal with the institution. We have division of power, government, parliament, independent legal system, and that is my main message also for the science and for translating what different people in different functional systems are saying. We need another view and another responsibility, and that means all the people in this functional system of the media.
Do you agree, or Goscha?
Yes, I do. And I would like to bring a bit together what you said and you said in the last couple of moments. Because indeed, there is the power question, and who is in power in the democracy? It's the citizens. And at the same time, we have a technology development and a science development of unknown scale in the past decades. Be it to these little devices we all have in our pockets, be it when it comes to the last kid in town, artificial intelligence, the way we are developing and the way we are getting information is really fundamentally different from how it was a few decades before. And I would like to state that when the power is with the citizens need to know how to handle it and how to deal with it in order to make smart decisions in their exercise of power. So what we are doing in the European Union on this, because there we have quite a lot of research about that done already, is not only looking at the treaties, which is obvious that treaties need to change, and we need to look into new forms of working together, like for example citizens panels, as you said, but also into looking into the information part of it. Looking to the transparency, like what kind of information do we have there, into educating, into making citizens capable of having smart decisions. Means media literacy, for example, when it comes to this new part. And the third part is, of course, fighting disinformation, always. And not only by debunking, but also by setting space and setting the right information into the public space so that a good choice can be made. If we don't do that, then indeed the power is not used to the best capacity ever.
Manon, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I would like to come back to the point you raised, the important point about power, and that's obviously a very relevant point when we think about the possible design for these new instruments, for these new democratic innovations, citizens' assemblies, and so on. And actually, that's a very common criticism, that very often you have these experiments, they go well, citizens deliberate nicely, have good ideas of what could be done, and then very often nothing or only very little things follow. And I think that's why it's crucial to think about these innovations not only as isolated experiments, but as something that would have to be connected with other parts of the political system. And I mean, there are different ways of doing it, and I think interesting examples from practice can give ideas here. So there have been citizens' assemblies that have prepared a question for a referendum, for example. So that was the very famous British Columbia Citizens' Assembly, but also the Irish Citizens' Assembly. And then you have now also citizens' assemblies, especially on the regional level, that work on the basis of more institutionalized connections with the parliament. So you have, for example, in East Belgium, you have this permanent citizens' assembly now that regularly feeds the proposals into the procedures in parliament. And that is something different than just saying, okay, you deliberate and propose something, make it public, recommend it to policymakers. It's one step further, so to say.
So
and I think that's interesting examples.
This could be a good empowerment for citizens. And I really agree what you say, or I think it's very important to know about the media, the analog media as well as the social media, because everybody of us know, okay, we are watching on our mobile and we see that, and some of the people only get their news from social media, from platforms like a Chinese platform or American platform, so you know what I mean. So, and that's also very necessary, I think, the education and how can I recognize that's a fake news and that's true. So it's also a question of education, isn't it?
Yes, totally. I mean, we have lots of programs actually starting with students in primary school, which are called like fact or fake. Really starting being enabling young persons, future voters, to see the difference, to be able to analyze, to be able to prove authenticity, just as journalists do later with the two-factor authentication, right? So these are the early projects where it starts to work with civil society, to build up resilience through a functioning civil society, and to work with fact-checkers, so that even if you don't trust the European Union, which might be the case, you might trust somebody else in the civil society who is able to help you with that. And this is something which is much more effective and efficient than just the debunking afterwards. Because if you just say, hey, what you just said is not true, that doesn't go that long way, that it's like
exactly.
with other things. You just need to start early in order to infuse this kind of thinking.
And Christoph, what do you think? What science could do there? What's the possibility of science to empower people and to get out of the, I don't know the word in English, Elfenbeinturm, sorry.
Ivory tower.
Ivory tower.
We know that in the European
Academic
Union.
ivory tower. Yeah, I think I like very much what you said, to start really with young students, age 10, 12 maybe. For us it's important to understand, to make them understand how science works. We all learned so much in the pandemic. In the beginning, we discussed this a little bit over coffee today. Scientists were very self-confident, saying we know how to overcome the pandemic. But then you could see that this is not how science works. Science does not come up with an answer within weeks, but it's a process of organized criticism. You try out an idea, you check it. If it's wrong, you go back a step, try a different idea. And I think this was part of the challenge for the scientific sector, that there were expectations on the scientists that science could not fulfill. And I think making young students understand how science works, what you can expect and what you cannot expect from science to deliver is a very important aspect. And maybe this also helps to overcome a little bit this decay in the trust of science, which I mentioned initially.
So, but how can scientists be more practical, for example, more not only in a theory but also in the praxis?
Yeah. A challenge for many scientists was that before COVID, we were among us in the ivory tower, as you call it, or as we call it, and then we were pushed in the limelight. And many of us understood that science communication, trying to make your ideas understood by a more general audience. Why is science interesting? How does science work? Why is science fun? And trying to communicate that will help to overcome, many of us believe, this skepticism. And new formats are being developed. Now, after the pandemic, many scientists devote more of their time for public outreach, and I think this is a good thing to do.
But there are nevertheless many people in all over the countries, I would say. They are, as you mentioned before, they are skeptical about scientists, about politicians, about what's going on, because they always think, yeah, come on, listen, I can't pay my bill for the electricity, I can't pay the supermarket, it's so expensive right now, and they will tell me, oh, you have to be more active in politics, and you have to take care of the democracy. But people say, yeah, I don't care about democracy because I care about how to pay my bills. So what are your answers for those questions?
You say something what we also find in the research we have in-house with our joint research center, and that is exactly that the trust is getting stronger the more you are interlinked with it, and the more you have the feel that what you say counts. And going to vote every 4 or 5 years isn't sufficient in nowadays to give this participative feeling, for a reason, of course. So what we've been looking into is how to work closer with citizens on a more daily basis, be it through citizens panels, for example, or being through working with the smallest community cells that we have, which are municipalities. So going into municipalities, working with the local councillors and asking them to organize on the ground and then report directly to the European Commission, so that we have the direct link as a counterlink to work with each other. That is of help. But at the same time, we are aware that very often when through our new items, be it through the local councillors or be it through citizens panels, we very often only get the ones who have spare time for that. So very often at the beginning of our thinking, we had the students and the pensioners, without discrediting these groups. But you know, now we need to
it's
see.
Not the average, yeah.
To see for the future, maybe it would help if we have remuneration for these kind of panels, or if we have childcare, for example, so that somebody who would sit at home normally, who might have both the capacity to think about it, but has bound hands, could come and help with that. We are looking into these possibilities. We are having a research project on that, both in-house as well as going into the open space, where I think one of your projects will be part of, so that this is developed on a scientific basis, so we don't spend taxpayers' monies on remunerating,
just to get,
when it doesn't work.
Just to get down on earth, yeah, to reach many people and not only specific people.
Yes, exactly, because democracy at the end of the day is something that you need to do, and you have to have the spare time to have the time to think about all the solutions. And maybe this is also one of the big differences when it comes to democratic solutions. They are not that easy. You need to, right now, the world is so complicated, so multipolar. It's not about in or out. It's not about left or right. Maybe it never was, but you need the time to think about it and to see if the solution that you want or the goal that you want has a solution that fits to it. And this needs time, and for this you need to have, the capacity.
And what's about communication? Because we all talk now together, but communication, I think, is one of the most important topic to get people involved, to get people enthusiastic about politics, about what's going on around their neighborhood, not to be only stubborn in your own tunnel. But what do you think about communication? Are politicians and scientists, are they good in communication?
They have to, yeah.
Scientists are getting better.
Okay, we just have
Your
4
turn.
minutes, so.
For politicians, it is a must, of course.
Yeah, but can they communicate? Maybe
Yeah,
my,
but
answer,
can
my
they?
question was
That,
not
well, obviously, Trump can.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
let's
is
go
that the
back from-
communication we want?
but let's
so
go to
it's about
Germany,
media.
not-
No, it's
yeah.
about media.
Yeah.
What I mentioned
Yeah.
before. I really insist on this. It's about media. The science need the channels to communicate with the ordinary people on the ground. The people is in power, of course. So what does it mean for the media? We have a polarization in the United States. One is writing for the Democrats.
It's the same
or for
in
the,
Germany or
no, it's not the
France
same.
or-
We have 9 billion euro every year for public broadcasting, for radio and TV stations, and this is for me it's an incentive, and it's really a chance to have a neutral institution which can communicate in a way where we have to inform about events, about facts, about issues, and not to polarize the polarization of media and opinions is not what is helpful for
So,
for the
Summary,
elections.
I'm
would
looking
like
at the
to-
time, we don't have much.
Yeah.
At
Okay.
the same time, it is as boring as oatmeal, and I want to see the 18-year-old who is watching Tagesthemen in
Yeah.
Germany
Yeah.
instead of looking on TikTok. What's the latest
Yeah, but
thing that really
the main
counts?
media are really important in Germany. TikTok is also
But Manon,
important.
you
but
wanted to mention
the
something
Olga
too,
bubbles will not solve
Yeah.
the problem. And my opinion is a kind of so-called quality in a foundation for information quality, or a kind of really force the public media to have public criteria, transparent criteria, and report about that, and not be the other powerful factor in the election.
Okay,
and
so
the side
everybody has
elections.
his opinion, but
So that's
Manon,
my
you
opinion.
wanted to say something
Yeah,
about
I mean,
that.
obviously communication is key, and all the problems, tasks you mentioned regarding the media, that's obviously important. However, I think it's also very important that we do not see the task of communication too much in this one-directional way. So in the sense of communicating knowledge or information to citizens. So I think, and this goes back to your point about how should or could democracies take seriously the concerns on the ground, so to say, right? So it's important, I think, to think about communication always about this multi-directional process, really. And if we want to develop new ideas for how democracies might become stronger, I mean, we're discussing some now, but probably we need additional ones, then this will probably only be the outcome of a societal dialogue that really, goes both directions, I wanted to say, but it's more directions. So also, obviously, communicative processes in society among citizens, and then back to decision makers. So,
Christoph, you wanted to mention something. You got 98 seconds.
It's very simple, because I'm just quoting another study by the Gallup Institute, which was done in Austria just 2 weeks ago, and this is very interesting. It's about the consumption of media. Where do people get their information? And there's a strong divide between voters that lean towards right populist, and they believe that, to a very scarily large fraction, that the national public radio and TV is spreading fake news. And they think that the tabloid newspaper you get for free in the subway are more trustworthy than the national public radio and TV system. So just a warning about that. Is a very recent study done in Austria.
My answer will be, we need a better public broadcasting.
This could be, but at the
The
moment...
other thing is United States.
But unfortunately, time is running out now, so maybe you can discuss this afterwards. And now I just would like really, really short, everybody of you have 20 seconds to make your conclusion, which walls or what we can break down, which walls, and which solution can you give the audience with today? Günther, 20 seconds.
No, 20 seconds. we have to communicate about ideas, not only about liberal ideas. We have to accept that people are thinking something different from my own opinion, where I'm convinced of. So that's the main point.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now, Manon, no, the time unfortunately is running out. Manon, short.
Okay.
You have to transport this.
Okay, very short. I think if we discuss the question of how to restore trust in democracy, then at least one key to possible solutions
5 seconds.
is that democratic systems should maybe show more trust in citizens' capacity to contribute actively to
Perfect.
politics.
Christoph.
Tear down the wall around the ivory tower, step over it, talk about science, how it works, why it works, and why it's fun.
Perfect. Gosha.
Listening, finding all the possible ways that science gives, technology gives, to listen the most direct way to citizens in order to enable them to exercise their power.
I thank you so much. I appreciate talking with you, and thank you so much for your interest, and have a nice day. And now 2-1 finished. Bye-bye.